So my favorite places are not necessarily favorites because of the place. They're favorites because of experiences I've had there. So,
Perfect.
for example, one of the first places that comes to mind is random mountain along the Antarctic Peninsula on that day where the clouds lifted and all of a sudden the sun was shining through and the mountains go all the way up and we were right at dinner time. So it was the golden colors on the mountains and just absolutely stunning moment. And it was a favorite because of the experience and not because I know the name of that mountain or something like that.
It's the experience. You can go anywhere, but it's the experience that you have there, right?
Mhm.
Something inside you clicks and you're like, I'm going to remember this. All right. Welcome to the Adventure Life Travel Show, where we explore how travel educates us, inspires us, and changes us in ways we never expect. I'm Jason, and each episode we'll talk with people who make adventure travel come alive, from lodge owners and expedition leaders on the ground to our own Adventure Life trip planners who help travelers reach the world's most extraordinary places. Together, we'll uncover the stories behind the journeys, the moments that connect us, challenge us, and remind us why travel matters. In this episode, we're turning the mic toward our own Adventure Life team, the trip planners and destination experts who help travelers turn wild dreams into real adventures. Kevin Moore has helped countless travelers explore Antarctica, and today we'll talk about what makes these journeys meaningful, how to prepare for remote travel, and why each trip teaches us something new. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Hey, Jason, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Glad to have you on.
Happy to be here.
Good. Happy to talk about Antarctica. It's a very popular destination, but it's also one of the most remote and hardest to get to. So
Indeed.
I'm going to ask you why you're the expert. And I mean, I already know because when I have questions, I turn to you on Antarctica. I call you Mr. Antarctica. You have worked on the continent, correct?
Indeed. I used to work for the U.S. Antarctic program. So I've been to Antarctica 6 times, but most of that is actually through the Antarctic program. I worked at McMurdo Station, so probably a total of maybe 22 months or so living at McMurdo Station, 10 days or so along the peninsula, a week at a field station, and about 45 minutes at the South Pole. That's my history in Antarctica. So,
way more than most people, by far.
but there's a lot of folks with way more than me. But once you go once, you kind of catch the bug. You kind of become, whether it's an Antarctic ambassador, like the technical term that IAATO likes to use, or you just notice that, wow, I just want to talk about Antarctica every moment I can. And that's where I fall. I enjoy talking about Antarctica, and so it works to talk to folks every day and get them there as well and help them figure out how to do it the way that matches what they want to do.
It's great. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I would say there's 3 basic ways with some variations on getting to Antarctica. The traditional, the most popular is going down to Ushuaia in Argentina, taking a boat across the Drake Passage to the Antarctic Peninsula, exploring, taking the boat back. The second is flying across the Drake Passage, either both ways or one way, and exploring the peninsula. And both of those, you can add on things. You can go further south across the Circle. You can go out to South Georgia and the Falklands. And then I think the third way is going from New Zealand, which is the least popular way, probably.
I would add one quick thing about the fly cruise.
Sure.
You're flying across the Drake, but you are still meeting a ship down there.
Right.
So you're not staying in a hotel. There are no hotels, right? So
There's no hotels in Antarctica?
There are none. No. So,
yes.
So yeah, just the difference between those first two is really just how you're going to be crossing the Drake. Is it 48 hours on a boat per direction, or is it 2.5 hours on a flight, and then you meet the boat that's already down there?
Gotcha.
So yeah, those are the two big ones. There are a few cruises, you are correct, that go south from New Zealand.
Those are few and far between, right?
Yeah, they're pretty rare. I would say maybe 3 or 4 a year in a good year. Some years there's maybe just 1 or 2. And those will focus on either the sub-Antarctic islands between New Zealand and Antarctica, or the Ross Sea, which is kind of the opposite side from the peninsula, much deeper south, as far as south as you can actually take a boat, which is why McMurdo, where I worked, is where it is. That's the furthest south any boats could ever possibly go. So they put basically a station there for all the logistical purposes. So yeah, the third direction would be coming from New Zealand. I might add a fourth way in that there are land-based tours now. So you can fly from either South Africa or Punta Arenas, Chile, and go to an actual land-based, it's not a hotel, it's camping, but you can do that sort of thing to access some kind of more adventurous areas, and eventually some folks, if they want to, can access the South Pole itself, can spend the night at the South Pole. There's a program where you ski the last degree, you cross-country ski the last 80 miles or so to the South Pole. So there are some unique ways of doing that.
You get all the way almost to the South Pole and then strap on skis and cross-country ski to the actual South Pole.
The last degree.
Wow. Okay.
Pretty neat.
So the land-based, let's talk about those. Those are the absolute most adventurous options.
Yes.
All of this is going to be taking place in the Southern Hemisphere's summer.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking November to March is the main months.
Or
would you say December?
Yeah.
For the cruises.
It would be November to March. The land programs are much more
Compact.
It's really December, January, maybe a little bit outside of that, but it's mostly December, January. It's really a 2-month season. Part of that is because there are no permanent structures, right? And so all of these things have to be set up. All of the equipment has to be brought in, has to be set up, has to be, okay, bam, now it's ready for travelers. And we do 8 to 12 weeks of actual travelers. And then it needs to be all taken off again and removed and taken apart, because we may get into this later, but part of IAATO's rules is that all of this travel has to have a minor and transitory impact on Antarctica itself. So you can't build permanent infrastructure. You can't build hotels, roads, those sorts of things. It all has to be temporary, which is kind of cool.
It sounds like you were quoting from.
Yes.
You were.
Quoting one of, I think, the first or second main points of IAATO's existence is that they are trying to work together in order to make it a minor and transitory effect on the Antarctic environment.
Well, tell our listeners exactly what IATA is so they know.
Sure, we've tossed that word around a couple times. So IATO is the International Association of Antarctic Tour Operators. International Association of Antarctic Tour Operators. And
IAATO.
Correct.
Okay.
And it basically, if you imagine every other place in the world that you do tourism has an overarching rules-setting organization, and it's probably a country, right? So if you're going to Svalbard, you're visiting Norway. Norway's going to make rules. If you're going to the Galapagos, it's part of Ecuador. Ecuador is going to make rules about how you do that. No one owns Antarctica. So as, maybe 3 decades ago, folks were trying to start doing tours there and do some very early expeditions there with tourists, not like actual exploration expeditions, but, trying to make tourism work in Antarctica. There was no overarching organization that was going to make rules of how they could do it. And they had a whole lot of foresight to realize that, okay, this could grow. This could take off. We want to be able to make sure we know how it's going to take off. We need it to be sustainable. We need to be able to share ideas of how to make it safe. What am I doing on my ship versus what are you doing on your ship versus what are you doing on yours? Can we collaborate to share some of those best practices? And so IAATO came out of that need for collaboration, but also a need for who's going to make the rules for us. We almost kind of have to do it ourselves. And so their constant mission is to try to create those rules and those procedures that all of those ships can be, and all of those operators, even the land tours, things like that, can be operating under, in order to do it safely, sustainably, and all those sorts of things. So happy to get into more detail than that, but I may.
Well, no, it's great just to hear that there was an organization that had the foresight to think we need to get these things laid out and protect this very special place, because people will want to see it and they probably will come, but they didn't know they would.
Right.
Well, like when they were thinking of putting this together, there were probably a few hundred people, 1,000 people visiting each season.
Right. Yep.
And do you have any clues how many visit?
The last I saw, there was a whole slide at the last IAATO meeting I went to, but it was over 100,000 per year going to Antarctica.
Wow.
There's at least 40 boats, depending on how you count them, maybe more like 60 or 70 boats going down multiple times every season. And then there's, of course, the land programs and things like that. So well over 100,000. Yeah.
Okay. So we've touched on the land. Let's talk about the ships. And I know we need to talk about the size of the ships, right? Because you can get on a giant cruise ship and sail past some icebergs and look at some penguins on Antarctic land. And that's about it.
Yeah, I call them the drive-bys. There are large ships that will do a drive-by, but any ship over 500 passengers is not allowed to do excursions. So you're not going to get off the boat if the boat is 500 passengers or more. So there are some 800 passenger, 1,200, maybe 2,200 passenger ships that go down occasionally, maybe once or twice a season. We don't really work with them. That's not what we want for our travelers. We are adventure life, after all. So those do exist, but folks need to understand that they're not getting off of the ship. They're not going to do a Zodiac excursion to go see whales and find those icebergs and do a shore landing, anything like that. So 500 is the first threshold that we should definitely just kind of keep in our mind as far as, set by IAATO, what we were just talking about, but kind of that threshold that we need to at least stay under 500. And then the next...
There's a better threshold, though.
There's another threshold. Also by IAATO rules, you're only allowed about 200 people off the ship at a time. And so this is where we really start focusing on those smaller ships under 200 passengers. If you're on a boat that's 250, 300, 350, you can get off and do excursions. You can do shore landings. You can do Zodiac cruising. There's a lot of things you can do. But if you're only allowed 200 people off the boat at a time, there, by definition, will be times of the day where you are scheduled to be on the boat, while other people are scheduled to be off the boat having fun. And that's, again, not really what we want for our travelers. So we work with some boats in the 250 range. Some of those boats pay attention to that threshold, and they try to keep, even though they have a capacity of 250, they stay at 200 for their Antarctic cruises. Those are the boats, or really the ones that are kind of 190, 170, 135, 115. There's a lot of boats in that 100 to 200 range that we like to work with.
Okay. And I think the other special number is 100.
Yep, exactly. So this is the one that people get caught on sometimes, is they catch hold of the fact that only 100 people are allowed on shore at a time. which is 100% true. Any one ship is allowed up to 100 people on shore at a time. All of those ships that have 200 passengers have enough Zodiacs to allow everybody off the ship at the same time. So some folks are going to go out on a Zodiac excursion, essentially looking for whales, looking for seals, looking for icebergs, kind of weaseling their way through some pack ice, getting a lot closer to things in the Zodiac, while another half of the passengers are going to get on shore and do a shore excursion, walking along the beach or walking up to top of a hill for views or exploring a penguin colony or things like that. So, and then everybody switches. So there isn't any moment where you're scheduled to be stuck on the boat watching other people have fun.
Right.
So
you're out and about doing something.
Exactly. And in my experience, I've enjoyed the Zodiac excursions just as much as the actual shore landings. I mean, getting that close to the whales as they toss their flukes up in the air, getting that close to the seals, just close enough that you're not bugging them, right? If they start looking over, then the guide knows, okay, I just went too close. That's kind of the general rule. So
yeah, we pulled on our trip, we pulled a Zodiac up to a giant leopard seal. I was like, and it yawned, and I was like, how big is its mouth? It could fit around my entire torso.
Right.
Yeah. Massive. It was just something I hadn't comprehended until then.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Zodiacs are fun. What's besides the penguin colony visits when you're on the shore, and actually being on Antarctica, what other things do you do on shore?
Sure. So yeah, you're going to kind of wander around the edge of penguin colonies. You won't walk through the middle of it or anything. But then oftentimes the shore walks going along a beach or something like that, icebergs will have washed up on shore. So these kind of boneyards almost of icebergs to walk through that have all sorted, kind of melted in these weird ghostly kind of shapes. That's fun to explore. There are both active and inactive research stations or whaling stations or things like that. Obviously, none of the whaling stations are active now, but historic stations and then active current stations as well. So you get some history from the heroic age, the early 1900s. You get some just plain, like, you see what normal life in Antarctica for those of us who actually lived there for 4 or 5 months at a time might look like. And then a lot of just being able to explore on snow, on ice, get up to a viewpoint on a hill that overlooks, this amazing set of mountains and glaciers and everything in the background.
And then it's a little weird to see your ship about, yay big out in the distance. And you're like,
yes,
ooh,
yeah,
that's my lifeline.
Some of my favorite photos that I've taken are with the little tiny ship in the background and then the little, even tinier Zodiac kind of squiggling its way towards what looks like it's directly towards me. I'm up on the hill, but yeah, those are seeing that connection from that boat with the little tiny ship coming towards me was one of my favorite photos.
Now, there's some specialized activities that some of the operators offer. You can do some mountaineering and hiking. You can do some kayaking. You can do some camping.
Mm-hmm.
Am I missing anything?
Occasionally snorkeling. There's a couple boats that do snorkeling.
Oh, wow, that's cold.
Yeah. Usually a wetsuit inside of a dry suit for the warmth of things.
Any scuba options?
There are a couple boats that do a scuba on occasion. You have to have a lot of experience. It is not a beginner scuba sort of situation.
It's not just, I'm PADI certified. Well, no, you need a couple of levels above that.
You got to have dry suit diving experience, and not just once. Like you have to have some serious dry suit, cold water, because that is a very different experience as far as the buoyancy and everything like that. So I'm not a diver, but I do know that when I go to a ship and start asking, hey, these folks are looking to do diving, they come back to me with, okay, what's their experience? How many dives do they have? Dry suit certified, in cold water with dry suits on, that sort of thing. So it does happen. There is scuba diving. There is snorkeling on occasion. But yeah, the kayaking, and there's this is going to sound like weird semantics, but there's kayaking, as you probably know, and there's paddling, or some people call it immersive kayaking versus discover kayaking. And the difference is when you are on one of the, and you'll notice the pricing as you're comparing these things.
Yes.
If you're on a kayaking program that's going to cost you about $1,200 or $1,000, that's not a one-time thing. You are signing up for the right to go kayaking just about every day during your trip. So if you're on an 11-day cruise, let's say, and you've got 5 days along the peninsula, each of those 5 days, weather permitting, they're going to try to get you in the kayak at least once, maybe twice. So that's the immersive kayaking, or just most boats just call it kayaking. And then the discover kayaking, or some boats call it paddling, is more of a sit on top kayak. We want to try it once, maybe twice. We don't need to go kayaking every day, but wouldn't it be cool to go once while we're in Antarctica? And so that's the distinction with the kayaking versus paddling. You mentioned camping.
Well, do you recommend the kayaking?
If you're this is what I tell folks. If you're the sort of folks who can't really go on vacation without kayaking, it's not really a vacation unless you've kayaked, then you need to kayak. But if you're just like kind of curious, if you kayak maybe once a year or twice, every 3 years, something like that, the paddling, the discover kayaking, that one-time thing on a sit on top is a fabulous experience. And you don't have to be, super technically, skilled at kayaking. You can
Great.
float, right? So I recommend, I do recommend the paddling for folks who are at least curious about it.
Who are good about it. I did the one time in a double kayak with my daughter. She wanted to do it. We did it on her birthday in Antarctica.
Oh, nice.
Yes. My wife and other daughter were like, we're not getting in that thing. The older daughter's like, I don't trust you, Dad. And the younger daughter, I was like going, you've kayaked before, but not very much. She goes, yeah, you're in charge. Which is, I think, the only time she said that in the past decade.
Yeah.
So
the other two were daunted by the size of the mouth of that leopard seal. Those,
I think that was also a bit of a
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. You mentioned weather, which is an excellent way to seg to the topic of this is the plan, but the plan is contingent on weather.
Indeed.
I believe we call these expedition style cruises for a reason. If you'd like to elaborate, I'd love to hear it.
Sure. So the best definition of expedition style, honestly, is to the simple fact that we're not pulling into ports, right? There are no ports in Antarctica. There's no pier that we're going to line up next to and drop the gangway. So expedition cruising is essentially, we don't have piers, we don't have ports. We have to be able to access whatever we're accessing by the kayaks, by the Zodiacs, something else, right? So that's expedition style. The fact that you're in Antarctica on an expedition style totally gets into what you're referring to as far as the weather. You got to go with the flow. The ship captain and the expedition leader are going to be looking at the weather 19 times a day and making decisions of where they go, where they do landings, what they do when they get there, all those sorts of things based on the weather, which of course includes the wind, to a certain degree includes where are the icebergs, how much ice is there. None of these ships, while they're all super strong hulls, very few of them, one of them, in fact, out of the 40 to 60 is actually an icebreaker. So they're not going to be trying to ice break through, fast ice or anything like that. So
yeah, quick tangent. There's ice ratings on their hulls. They're like, these are good for these different things. The captains are aware of this, and they can look at the situation and go, we can take this boat through that passage if the ice is at this level. Again, not an icebreaker, but the captain in a different ship with a different ice rating could look at the same thing and go, we can't take our ship through there. We're going to have to go the long way.
Correct. The differences among most of the ships that we work with are so subtle, though, that it's...
So it's really not something anybody that's looking needs to worry about.
Correct. The layperson really doesn't need to dive into it of is this 6A versus 6B or whatever. There's different rating systems. It gets very, very confusing. And what you need to know is if the ship's going down there and we're working with them, we've vetted these folks already, they're good, right? They know what they're doing. They can handle the amount of brash ice and just kind of small little rollers and just kind of
The birdie
small bits
bits
of
and
ice that
such.
it's all run together. If you're especially if you're heading down towards like the Antarctic Circle or something, you're going to get to some areas where it looks all white in front of you. It's not all frozen over. It's just so many little bits of white icebergs and everything like that. Small
All kind
ones,
of clumped together.
all clumped together. You can make it through that, and at some point, the ship captain knows they can recognize this. They've seen it a bit more than you and I have. They recognize, okay, yeah, we're getting in an area we don't want to go to. So,
Well,
but the differences between those boats are really subtle. So,
well, that's something, listeners, we've just taken off your plate. You don't have to worry about the ice ratings. We've got that covered for you.
Yep. Exactly.
So it's more picking the itinerary, activities, and then the level of the ship, because there's different levels of ships in terms of comfort and amenities and things like that.
Yeah. I'm going to go back for a second just to your weather.
Please. Yeah, let's stick with, we really didn't finish the weather and how great an expedition leader and a captain can really affect your trip.
Right.
They can't do anything about the weather, the wind, the ice. They can try and make it as best as possible.
Yep. They're gonna be, like I said, they're gonna be paying attention to the weather, and will make decisions about where you go, what you do, how you do it, based on that, and based on what they know as far as where the wildlife is, because they know that's why we're going, right? They want to focus on that as well. So they'll be making those decisions. One of the things that I try to encourage my travelers to really look at when keeping that weather issue in mind is that you can lose a day to weather in Antarctica. It may be rough enough, windy enough, cold enough, whatever the situation is, foggy enough, you can lose a day's worth of excursions. So if you start with a ship with an itinerary that's particularly short, there are, for example, a couple 9-day cruises that will cross the Drake Passage by ship. So there's 2 days. They're going to cross the other direction by ship. There's 2 days. Day 1 and day 9, that's just embarking and disembarking. So now we're down to 3 actual days in Antarctica. If you lose one of those, now you're down to 2, right? So what I try to, my minimum in my mind is, okay, let's start with 4 days of full actual days of excursion in the morning, excursion in the afternoon. Knowing that, okay, if we lose one of those, we still have 3 full days. Now, if we have the time budget, if we have the financial budget, and we can do a cruise that's maybe more like 13 days, that then provides 6 or 7 days in Antarctica, actually at the peninsula, doing 2 excursions each day. Wow, we're now up to like 12 or 14 different excursions in different places. So that weather piece really ties for me into how long of a cruise can you manage with your time budget and financial budget and everything like that. So that's when I start thinking weather, it's like, okay, well, how's that going to mess with my trip?
And that's excellent, both in terms of keeping everyone, aware that, yes, this may be what's planned. It doesn't mean you're going to be able to get there, because you could have the day planned to go to Port Lockroy, right? My wife was looking forward on our trip to go to Port Lockroy. Mm-hmm. Guess what? The weather was great. So nothing's stopping us from going to Port Lockroy, except the entire staff was sick as a dog. And they were like, we were barely functioning. We can't take any guests.
Right.
So
right.
No Port Lockroy for us.
Right.
And you roll with it. Was she disappointed? Sure. But did she see tons of great things and have wonderful experiences and not complain all the time about the cold? My wife does not like cold weather. So yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You probably still tell stories about something else that happened that day, right? There's something else.
She doesn't even mention Port Lockroy in the stories and talk about missing it. She was looking forward to it, but that's that. There were so many other memories she talks about.
Yeah. Excellent.
So yeah. Getting on and off the Zodiacs means you might get wet.
Indeed.
So how does that work?
All of the boats are going to provide the big calf length rubber boots. That is exactly what you're going to want for the entirety of your excursion. So it's not a situation where you have to wear the rubber boots, get to shore, and then sit down on the wet snow and change into other boots and then do that whole thing in the reverse. They're nice boots. They're good rubber boots that are going to be comfortable enough for you to walk around on shore. And so they are all provided for you. You don't have to worry about it. You just got to bring shoes to be comfortable on the boat. And how does that physically happen? The Zodiac's going to get you as close to shore as it can. And you'll be warned in advance, this may be a wet landing, quote unquote, wet landing, means the Zodiac's not going to get you up right next to a perfect rock that you can step out onto and keep your toesies dry. It's going to get you close, but then you're going to have to swing your legs out of the Zodiac, stand in the water, maybe calf deep, maybe knee deep, and then walk to shore as calmly as you can. So
this you have to perfect the butt scoot along the edge of the Zodiac to get to the front to try and minimize the depth as much as possible.
Indeed. Yep.
Yeah.
Don't
They do the best.
Don't jump into the engine because they want
no.
the engine in the deep water. They want to keep the front of the boat in the shallow water.
Yeah.
So you got to scoot up as far as you can to the front of the boat.
Yeah, they look for the best places, and sometimes you can get out and keep your feet dry, but not all the time. It's just part of it. What gear do you bring, or would you recommend bringing? I know some of the boats will provide an expedition parka, some will not. And the ones that don't, some of them actually have rental options if you don't want to haul those down.
Yep. All true. So the basic statement, if you're ready to go skiing, you're ready to go to Antarctica. If you've got the gear to go downhill skiing, you've probably got the gear to go to Antarctica.
Okay.
Some folks come to this with the idea they have maybe March of the Penguins, or what was the movie about the emperors a few years back where, they spend the winter. The emperor penguins are spending the winter and it's 60 below. And so people have that image in their head.
They hear Morgan Freeman's voice in their head talking.
Exactly, yes. And so they think, well, it's going to be 60 below. How do I prepare for that? It's not. We don't go down there at that time of year. So it's going to be in the teens, maybe in November and February. It might be in the 20s. It might be in the 30s.
We're talking Fahrenheit here for our listeners.
Fahrenheit, thank you.
Around plus or minus 0 for the Celsius folks.
Exactly. Thank you.
And the weather can be sunny and calm. It can be cloudy, windy. You can get some white caps and rain. It's weather. We don't control it. So you can go out and have a glorious morning and smooth water on the Zodiac tour. And that afternoon you get to go to land, and the poor schnooks on the Zodiac are getting battered with waves and the white caps and sprays hitting them all over.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Luck of the draw.
And it's one of my favorite parts of Antarctica is how different the weather can be. The first 2 days of my cruise along the peninsula, we had low-hanging clouds. So we saw the first maybe 3% of all the mountains along the bottom, and then it was just clouds. And we had that for a few days, and you get used to that. And okay, this is cool. This is dramatic, whatever. And then the clouds lift on day 3. And holy cow. Like, those mountains go all the way up. They're all the way up there. And you get these crazy colors because the sun's never really getting that high in the sky. So your golden hour can be hours long, right? So that photography aspect of it, and honestly, it's one of my favorite pieces of Antarctica, and just in general, is how many different shades of white and blue actually exist in the world. I had no idea until I went down there.
I think just about every ship has a photography expert on board.
Indeed.
And I'm telling you, I can't take a very good picture. I've taken thousands and thousands, and I have like 4 that are worth something, right? And not much. If you like photography, go talk to the photography expert on board, because your settings are not going to be the normal settings. I found it helpful to talk. Most boats are going to have an expert photographer on board, and he or she is more than willing to come and chat and give you some advice. If you bring in one of those fancy cameras with all the different settings, you should definitely talk with him, because like you were saying, the blues and the whites and the sun never really setting and the golden hour being long, you kind of have to make adjustments, and those folks are going to know how to do that.
Yeah. And that also comes, brings up a little bit of the seasonality of, if you're a person who wants that golden hour, who wants the really golden hues, and wants to be able to really take advantage of that as a photographer, you need to kind of think about when is the golden hour, right? So in late December, very early January, golden hour is midnight, right? So it's much later in the day. Whereas if you're, I traveled at the end of February on my last cruise, and we had sunset happening right during dinner. And so golden hour was late afternoon, well through dinner, and just past that. So, thinking about that a little bit of it's awesome to see midnight sun. It's awesome to have that almost 24 hours of pure daylight. But then you don't get the golden hour. So just kind of thinking about the seasonality a little bit there.
Right. Yes. When we, younger daughter and I, the adventurous one who did the kayaking, we did camping while the wife and older daughter stayed tucked warmly in the ship.
Mm-hmm.
We were awoken in the middle of the night by an iceberg calving, which is
Ooh.
kind of a interesting thing to wake up to at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
And the sun is still out. The sun has just gone. It's come low, but it didn't get all the way down.
Yep.
It freaked out a lone penguin who had come close to our little holes we had dug to sleep in. When we sat up, the penguin was like shocked. All of a sudden, no, those people just woke up.
Right. So when you were camping, you were not in tents, right? You had
no tents. Yeah.
Snow shelter holes with open sky.
Yep. We dug our own holes, put in, they had all the gear, the bivy bags, amazingly much warmer than I thought it would be. They had said, take your clothes off down to your base layer.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I don't know about that, but I'm going to trust them. They're the experts.
Yeah.
And I was perfectly warm.
Yeah.
So
great. That's awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Do you have a favorite place in Antarctica? Oh, I've stumped him. I've stumped the expert, folks. While you're thinking, you think for a minute, I want to remind everyone that if you're watching this on YouTube, go ahead and put any comments or questions in the chat below. We're actually going to read them, and I will go to Kevin and ask him what you're asking me. If you're listening to this, I want you to email me, travelshow@adventurelife.com, and we'll get you can comment or question. If they're comments, I'll share them with Kevin. If they're questions, I'll definitely ask Kevin. Again, the email is travelshow@adventurelife.com. So now you've had time to think.
So my favorite places are not necessarily favorites because of the place. They're favorites because of experiences I've had there. So,
perfect.
For example, one of the first places that comes to mind is random mountain along the Antarctic Peninsula on that day where the clouds lifted and all of a sudden the sun was shining through and the mountains go all the way up. And we were right at dinner time. So it was the golden colors on the mountains and just absolutely stunning moment. And it was a favorite because of the experience and not because I know the name of that mountain or something like that. And then so many more of them are tied to, over near McMurdo hikes or boondoggles or things like that we could do from McMurdo Station. And so those were all done with folks that I'm spending 3 or 4 months on the ice with. that you have created this fabulous relationship with. And so, New Year's Eve, midnight on top of Castle Rock outside of McMurdo, or, dive tending with the, dive tending would be basically when the folks from National Geographic were taking all of those videos underneath the ice um, for their, what was the name of that show a few years back? But they had all these videos that were under the ice. And somebody had to be at the top of the hole to pull these guys out with all of their photography equipment and everything like that. So you're in this amazingly beautiful place and you're helping these guys get out of the hole. Their lips are purple. And so that experience is more, I think, my memory and what makes that place favorite than the actual destination.
Well, I think you've hit on something. It's the experience. You can go anywhere, but it's the experience that you have there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of like we say, that travel changes you. That experience, you have to get there to have that experience. And it doesn't matter exactly where it might have been along, say, the peninsula or whatnot.
Right.
To have that experience, that something inside you clicks and you're like, I'm going to remember this for a long, long time.
Yeah. And I would, I have travelers who come to me with a specific place along the peninsula that they've read about that they need to see, right? And they need to check that off their list. And for a few reasons, I want to really discourage that. One being, we can't promise you're ever going to get to that spot. None of the ships, because of weather, and also because the ships can't physically announce in advance where they're going to be, right? So when they put out an itinerary, we've got ships right now, it's December of 2025. Ships right now are announcing their March of 2028 departures. So they know generally where they're going to go. They're going to go down the west side of the Antarctic Peninsula, or they're going to go into the Weddell Sea, or they're going to go across the polar circle. They can't know right now whether they're going to go to Deception Island or Peterman Island or Paradise Bay or Nico Harbor or Yankee Harbor or those specific landing places. None of those decisions are made until literally 2 or 3 months before the cruise. So they can't be advertising it now because they won't know that they're going there until much later. So coming into this conversation with, I have to get to Deception Island, creates a problem in expectations, because I can't meet that. I can't promise to meet your goal of going to Deception Island. Is it possible you'll go there? Sure. Is it possible you'll go to 12 other places that are just as cool as Deception Island? Yes, that's very much likely. So it is.
And you could go to a place that's not Deception Island and have an experience well beyond anything you thought would happen at Deception Island, because you just don't know.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a bit of, and it's hard for us to release that control that we like to have in our everyday life and give that to the expedition leader and trust that they're going to try to find the best places to visit, take advantage of the weather, take advantage of the wildlife that's occurring at that time. But that's the best thing to do. Going back to that expedition cruise model, that's the thing, is releasing our control and giving it to the expedition leader.
They're the experts. They know what's going on. They know the area well. As kind of a little side note, we're on my family's trip down. They announced, we're almost there. We've made a change. We haven't even gotten to Antarctica. They made a change. Why? The weather looked so good. They're like, we're veering over. We're going to pop our nose into the Weddell Sea. We never get to do that, but the weather is so good. We're going to stop at Brown's Bluff.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And then pop into the Weddell Sea. Wasn't on the itinerary. Nobody had expected this, but they're like, it's available. It's free. The weather is just perfect. We're in a good spot. It's not going to kind of change the rest of our plans, because we can adjust and make it happen with a longer cruise overnight.
Yeah.
It was great, right? Lovely surprise. Wasn't on our list. We got to do it.
Yep.
Can you think of any travelers that have come back that were just like, they had some specific thing that just blew them away from one of their trips?
I've heard things about how silent it is, how quiet it can be. I mean, if especially if the ship turns off their engines, it has which they occasionally do, to just pull into some ice and just sit there and turn off the engines, and it's so amazingly quiet. Or you get on shore and get away from the ship, and unless you're hearing some conversation of the people hiking near you, it's so quiet. It's amazingly quiet. So yeah,
If you're not near one of the rookeries.
well, yeah, that's yeah. Yep.
Our colleague Kelly gave me a wonderful tip about the penguins and their poop.
Mhm.
The smell can be a bit overwhelming,
Mhm.
especially when they're doing the nesting. And her tip was, if you wear one of the little balaclavas or buffs, which
Yep.
I had because they're very handy,
Mhm.
a drop of essential oil, and
Oh.
you pull it up, and all of a sudden you're smelling lavender or tea tree oil or whatever scent you like. It helps fight off the penguin poop smell.
And then when you get home, that lavender or tea tree oil reminds you of Antarctica. That's awesome.
There you go. Yeah. Well, now I want to branch out a little bit because Antarctic cruises can also include, as you mentioned earlier, some of the longer ones will try and try and sail down to the Antarctic Circle, to cross the circle, which is an imaginary little line. It's a dotted line on a map. You're not going to actually see a circle if you do this.
Right.
But others will go to a few other islands. You want to tell me a little bit about those? And what makes them special?
Sure. So, yeah, the ones that cross the polar circle, I'll dive into those just a little bit. There's a little bit of bragging rights to those, right? So people ask, why would I do a polar circle cruise? Am I going to see anything different? The answer is no. You're not going to see anything different, other than maybe if you're holding a GPS and it's going to tell you that you're at 66.5 degrees south. There will be a celebration when you get there. You'll have a drinky drink of some sort.
Maybe a sign on the deck.
Maybe a sign on the deck. So there's a bit of just bragging rights for why you might want to cross the polar circle. But the other reason why I like polar circle trips and why I chose to do that, even though I'd already been across the polar circle multiple times, is the amount of time on the peninsula. Kind of goes back to that earlier conversation. My trip had 8 full days along the peninsula because we were going so far south. So 8 full days times 2 excursions a day. We had great weather. We didn't lose a day. I had 16 excursions. I had 16 different times I was getting off the boat and doing something in Antarctica. So
when you're headed to the circle, you spend the days doing excursions. You just don't have a couple of days at sea, as they say, and cruise to it.
You've done the days at sea coming across the Drake.
So you're hitting the peninsula the whole way down.
But you're hop, skipping, and jumping all the way south, and then likely hop, skipping, jumping all the way north, unless you spent all your time going south and they're like, oh, we got to hurry to get back. So either way, you're still getting all of those days. And then you're mostly traveling at night. You're getting that extra distance south on the overnights. And then to the rest of your question was about the other special islands. Folks will read about South Shetlands. South Shetlands are part of just about any Antarctic peninsula cruise. If you're looking at a map, there's the peninsula itself, and then there's a whole series of islands that's just off the coast there. We refer to that whole area as the Antarctic Peninsula. Deception Island, for example, is on the South Shetlands.
And those kind of help form a little bit of a barrier for the peninsula, right?
They do. Yeah.
So that kind of helps the weather and the water be a little calmer.
So once you're down there and you're past the South Shetlands, you're in an area that is much calmer, and you're not, hopefully, likely to get seasick on that stretch. It's the Drake Passage that's rough. Once you're there, you're in amongst all these islands and channels and things, and it's quite calm. So South Shetlands, kind of lump that in with Antarctic Peninsula. On occasion, you'll get an Elephant Island. Elephant Island is just the furthest tip of the South Shetlands, but it is famous because of Shackleton. That's where he landed when he had to abandon his original ship. It got munched up by the ice and went to the bottom of the ocean. he took off with 3 little boats and miraculously made it to Elephant Island. And then from Elephant Island, he went to South Georgia, which is probably the next thing to talk about. There are longer cruises that will include South Georgia. South Georgia is different in a couple ways. It's a lot greener, a lot grassier. It's got 3 different kinds of penguins than you see at the peninsula itself. And so when people start asking me, hey, should I do South Georgia? My answer is oftentimes, well, how much time do you have and how much money do you have? Because South Georgia, by definition, you're getting to 18 to 24 days in length now.
So that's the total cruise. So you're going from usually Ushuaia, sailing over to South Georgia, down to the peninsula, back up to Ushuaia. 18 to 24 days.
18 to 24 days. 24 days ones will also include the polar circle. They're like trying to get everything in a 24-day, 24-day.
Check everything off the list.
Exactly.
Got it.
So my answer to folks is yes, if you have the time budget and the financial budget, you should do South Georgia. It is different. It is wacky. It is amazing with the numbers of penguins, the elephant seals, all those sorts of things. It is amazing. If you can't do it, if your time budget only allows you 2 weeks off, or your financial budget won't allow for the money involved with South Georgia, you should do the Antarctic Peninsula itself. It's amazing in itself. So
right.
It's really what can you afford, both time-wise and finance-wise.
And what about the Malvinas or Falkland Islands?
Mm-hmm.
They're usually a stopover on the way to South Georgia?
Or the way back, yeah.
Or the way back?
That trip you just described, Ushuaia, South Georgia, Peninsula.
Can be done in reverse?
Can be done in reverse.
Okay.
It can be done either direction. Different ships do it different ways in different seasons, everything like that. So the Falklands or Malvinas are often put in there as a day or maybe 2 days, usually just a day, maybe day and a half, as a way of splitting up that time between Ushuaia and South Georgia. That cruise can be 3 or 4 or 5 days of just at sea if you don't put something in the middle. And so a lot of operators will put Falklands in there. Falklands is interesting. It has penguins. It's got other shorebirds. It's got obviously a whole culture to itself. It's got the history from the early 80s and obviously well before that. So it's interesting, but it's mostly inserted as, God, we got to break up these days at sea kind of thing.
Yeah. Because these smaller ships, I've had people ask me, well, is there a casino on board? Is there this? So no, this is a small expedition style ship. It's comfortable. There's some nice areas, lounges, a bar, a library, theater, but you don't have the Rockettes coming out and doing a show every night for you.
Right. Yep.
All right. What would be the one piece of advice anyone thinking about going to Antarctica should hear from you, the Antarctic expert in adventure life?
Honestly, it's not a blanket statement that I would be able to make for everyone. My recommendation is, let's have a conversation, because I need to figure out what your priority is as a traveler, whether the priority is the onboard comfort overall, everything else, or is your priority taking advantage of that expedition style and being willing to go with the flow and give that control to the expedition leader and trusting them to give you amazing experiences. Those aren't necessarily mutually exclusive, but having that conversation with a traveler is where I can really help them to figure out which ship, which itinerary, which departure date, all those sorts of things. So the biggest recommendation, honestly, is have a conversation with me or with Jason or with one of our colleagues about what's going to match that person's goals.
I think you're spot on. I have to give props to the Old Guy Club here at Adventure Life. As you can see by the beards, if you're watching on YouTube, Kevin and I are members of the Old Club. old guy club. And we're doing pretty good, I think. But yeah, it's not a one size fits all destination.
Right.
I don't think any destination really is. And talking with an expert, and let's be clear, not everyone at Adventure Life will be able to sell you an Antarctic trip, right? We specialize. We want to have been there to be able to tell you what's going on. So you're going to talk with somebody who's been there, who's done that, who gets all the updates and the trainings. Kevin gets all the updates from IATA because he actually is our representative on the organization. Thank you for doing that.
Sure.
And thank you to IATA for existing. It's great that it does because it helps protect a very special place. So yeah, besides having a conversation, I also think planning ahead is probably key, because the spots that probably fit your time frame, your budget, and your needs may fill up first. With that seasonal stuff.
Yeah.
Well, again, any questions or comments, please throw them below in the YouTube chat, or please email travelshow@adventurelife.com. We will answer all of those. I want to thank Kevin for coming on. He is our first trip planner to be subjected to this show. So he's kind of wading into some unknown territory. He's going to go back and say how awful it was to some of my colleagues and to scare them off, but I'll still twist their arm and get him on. So I want to thank you for joining us on the Adventure Life Travel Show. Every journey tells a story, not just about where we go, but about who we become along the way. If you'd like to explore more transformative adventures, visit adventurelife.com or follow us on social media for upcoming episodes and travel inspiration. Until next time, keep exploring, keep discovering how travel can change you. Now, get out there and go.